A character named Audrey? I'm all in. I'm such a brat. So it's not all about me, but it's all about me. I kid. Dark and messed up. And potentially nightmare-inducing. Vampires gotta eat. Murdered. 40-year anniversary. There we go. And definitely like sit near a fan when you're reading it, because some of those scenes are steamy. Why am I having a case of deja vu? Have I already done this? Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse, and welcome to another round of books that Audrey has read lately. I'm having a fantastic reading month, series, new to me authors, new releases, like a whole mix of books. We're going to talk about all of those, but before we do, we're going to talk about Book of the Month, who is sponsoring today's video. You guys, I'm not even going to bury the lead. You can get your first book for only $5 using the code PUMPKIN. Details are going to be down below, the links to their website, everything that you need to know to get that $5 book using the code PUMPKIN. And now I'm going to tell you all the things that I love about Book of the Month. So, you guys know, I'm a huge fan. Some of my favorite books this year have been Book of the Month selections: God of the Woods, How to End a Love Story, A Talent for Murder, The Wedding People, on and on. One of the things, of the many, many things that I love about Book of the Month is how they introduce me to new authors. They do the best job curating their collection of books. There's so many books to choose from across genres. You get thrillers, you get mysteries, you get contemporaries, you get new releases, you get early releases, hardcover books, and now they also offer audiobooks. So you can choose your first, either hardcover book or audiobook for only $5 using the code PUMPKIN. I am obsessed with being able to discover new to me authors. I love seeing some of my old favorites like Peter Swanson, like Riley Sager, but I also love discovering new ones. And for me, it always feels like permission to take a leap on something new, and it never feels risky to me because their website spells out to you like what the book is about. It gives you insight, it gives you some reviews on it, so like you can really get a quality sense of what the book is about. I feel like I have a pretty good pulse on what my tastes are, but when I do step a little bit outside of my thriller wheelhouse, I always need a little bit of an extra helping hand, and Book of the Month's website does a great job giving you what you need to know to help you decide which book you are going to choose. So let's talk a little bit about the books I chose this month. Let's make a little spot here for my Book of the Month box. See, she's gonna nestle right in perfectly. It's like the bookshelf was made for her. So I picked up 2 books this month. The first one, kind of in honor of spooky season. So you guys know I am a diehard mood reader, but I also can kind of like lean into spooky season books. The first one I picked up is Dearest, and this is by Jacquie Walters. So this is her debut novel, and this sounds so creepy. I couldn't resist it. This is a new mom in need of help opens the door to her long estranged mother, only to invite something much darker inside. I love the dark and creepy. I love the dark and messed up. And I think this is going to be like wonderfully spooky for this time of year, which I'm always in the mood for. And then I also picked up Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. This book has had so much pre-buzz. Again, not a new author, but a new to me author. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm not in on the hype of this. I need to know. I have intentionally not read reviews. I don't want to be spoiled for anything. And I really just, live, die for the cover, and am so excited to dive into one of her books. Family stuff is happening here. We have an exquisitely moving story about grief, love, and family, but especially love. And this is following Peter and Ivan, who are brothers. Sally Rooney herself is an Irish author, and we are in Dublin, at least for part of, if not all of this story. Again, I don't want to read too much about it because I'm so fearful of a spoiler, but I was super excited to get my hands on this and super excited to get my hands on this. These could not be more different. This is the perfect balance to my Libra personality. And now you guys can get one of these or one of their other selections, only $5 using the code PUMPKIN. Shipping is always free. You get the beautiful box that shows up right at your front door. They couldn't make it any easier for you, but their team does such a great job of going through all of the books that are coming out and curating, like I said, this collection. They show so much love for debut authors. They amplify new authors. There's such diversity to the selections that they have. And I'm always finding something new, and it's pushing something onto my radar that might not have been there to begin with. And I love that their mission is to help the reader discover new books. I am always here for discovering new books. I am always here for discovering new writers. And I am super grateful to Book of the Month for helping me do that. So thank you again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Like I said, you guys, all of the details are going to be down below. I would not be me if I didn't also remind you guys that they have a podcast called Virtual Book Tour. They bring different authors on. They give you some behind the curtain about their story, about their writing process, about their life. There's some games. There's some great conversation. I live for those kinds of moments, so be sure to check that out as well. So, details down below. First book for $5 using the code PUMPKIN. So many different selections to choose from. I don't want to drop either of these books. And now we're going to get into a whole bunch of books that I already have read in the last few weeks. All right, here we go. The first two books I'm going to talk about together because they're the first and second books in a series, so that makes sense. It's The Butcher and the Ren, and then The Butcher Game by Alaina Urquhart. So I read The Butcher and the Ren last year when it first came out. The Butcher Game just came out, and I decided to reread this before I read this, and I'm so happy that I did. I am amazed sometimes at what I do remember about a book I read and what I don't remember. And I loved this book the first time that I read it. And when I reread it, I liked it even more. Like, I feel like I had like a whole different appreciation knowing how the book ends, knowing what's going to happen, and still being like completely hooked along for the ride. And then there was something I can't believe I forgot that on the second time around, I also was like, this is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. This is why I love these books. The premise of the books. I'm only going to say a little bit about this one. We are following Dr. Wren Muller. She is a, let me double check so I get it right, forensic pathologist. And she is working with the police on a serial killer case. And this is one of those books where we know in chapter 1 who the serial killer is and we get his perspective. So we are with Jeremy, who is legitimately a really terrifying serial killer. I have a, I don't know why I like to scare myself, but I have this like love-hate relationship with these books where you get the serial killer POVs because it terrifies me, but I absolutely love it. And Jeremy is not a fun person to like be in chapters with, but it's also an absolutely brilliant serial killer. And we are following Wren and John LaRue, who is a detective in New Orleans. They're in Louisiana, trying to solve this case. And I just absolutely loved it. The first time I read it, I physically read it. The second time around, I wound up doing the audiobook, and this was read by Sophie Amos and Joe Knezevich. They also do the audio for book number 2 in case you're interested. Fantastic, fantastic job. Really bringing the book to life. And I feel like I have such a different appreciation on the second go around and like such an added appreciation for how the audiobook narrators continue to keep this completely terrifying. I just loved it. Really hard to talk about, don't want to give much away. Jeremy is known in the media as the Bayou Butcher. He is terrifying the town. He is puzzling the police. And again, we are watching them investigate and try and catch a killer. And then in book number 2, which I'm going to say next to nothing about, this picks up a few weeks after book number 1. I will say I felt like it started a little bit slower, but I think that's because you sort of end on a note here. You need to take a breath. It resets like a little bit of our, because like I legit read them back to back. I feel like it reset my heartbeat because it was pounding. And then like we're off to the races once again. So this does take them out of town, which was kind of fun, getting to see them in a new, like getting to see Wren and John in a new town, location, all that good stuff. And I would say was equally dark and messed up. And potentially nightmare inducing if, you know, depending on your threshold for the dark and messed up. But I highly recommend it. I think it's such a tremendous series. So Alaina herself, she is an autopsy technician by trade. She's also one of the co-hosts of the Morbid podcasts, but she unquestionably adds an authenticity to the medical side of this. And I just think they're really well written. They're sharp, they're quick, really good characters. I really enjoy Wren and John so much. And I will be very curious to see what happens next. I'm gonna have to wait an entire year, but I highly recommend both of them. Had a great time with them. Boom, boom. I just like, I love a series, I do. And I have a couple books in a series to talk about. And on that note, let's just jump into another book in a series. Okay, this is Long Gone by Joanna Schaffhausen. This is the second book in the Detective Annalisa Vega series. I talked about Gone for Good, the first book in the series, which I was going to say which came out last month, which I read last month. I talked about in my last recent reads video. The story continues here. Again, second in a series is always like a little bit cryptic. So Annalisa is in Chicago. We get some of the same characters from book number 1. We're also picking up, I want to say this is maybe a year after book number 1. Did I have the smarts to write that down? At the end of the day, it isn't totally relevant. I want to say this is about a year later is when it picks up. But in this one, this book opens with a detective being found murdered kind of in a bizarre way in his own home. And we're immediately thrown into that investigation. So kind of similarly to the first book, we have a few cases going on. I feel like this is super common in investigative issues. We have like the A case and the B case. And we are watching Annalisa sort of deal with the consequences and the fallout of things that happen in book 1. Also try and stay on the job. Again, we've got characters from 1 into 2. I don't always want to talk about the who's, but I had a really good time with it. So I have been a fan of Joanna Schaffhausen's books. I talked about her Ellery Hathaway series, which I really enjoy. I just like her writing. I'm in a investigative mode on like one part of my brain right now, as you saw from The Butcher and The Ren, as you're going to see when we get into Predator. And I'm just really enjoying, like I said, being in a series, following these characters. There's 2 more books in this series. I have one of them. Do I have the other one? Maybe I have. No, I definitely have one of them. It has a little bit of a dark academia spin, so it feels like it's perfect for this time of year. But I feel like if you're looking for investigative, with some personal relationships, with a bit of family dynamic in it, I always love a strong female protagonist. I love the dynamics that she's up against. I love what she's facing in this book. I love her strength in this book. And I just think she's a really sharp character. And there's such a determination that she has to get answers. And it's one of these things where she's just going to do what she's going to do. And I don't know, there's like a boldness about her. I feel like I admire a bold character because I don't feel like I would ever be that way. Like I wish I could be some of these main characters, but I don't think I'm that brave. But I really enjoy her, and I just really enjoyed this book. So I'm very curious to see where it's going to go next. I will say, and this is probably a byproduct of reading so many like of the dark and messed up books, I was convinced something was going to happen. And it didn't, but I was like convinced that this super dark and messed up thing was going to happen in this book. And I'm not mad that it didn't happen. I almost feel relieved, but I had built up this storyline in my head that it was going to happen. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else does that, but anyway, all in, all good. And we'll see what happens next. But again, friends, family, great dynamics in this book. Really well written. Excited for more. And also I did do part of this on audio, and Kelsey Navarro is the narrator on this one. And she was fantastic. She was absolutely fantastic. So good times all around. Just checking my notes. The next book is a standalone, and this is The Hitchcock Hotel by Stephanie Wrobel. I loved this book so much. This is a book that had been on my radar when I saw the title of it, when it was announced, when I saw the cover of it. I freaked out. I was so excited to read this book, and I gobbled it up as soon as I got it. This was gifted to me from Berkeley. Thank you very much. And I just like devoured it. It was so freaking good. You do not need to be a Hitchcock fan to appreciate this book. If you are, I think you will pick up some Easter eggs. I am not a super fan, so I know some stuff also passed me by, but I had great fun with this, and you could tell that Stephanie Wrobel had great fun with this. I listened to a few of her author interviews at book launch, and it was so fun to listen to her talk about like how far and crazy she wanted to take it and how she had to dial it back a little bit. But I had a great time listening to her talk about her experience with the book. And I really feel like you can feel how fun it was to write because it was super fun to read. So you guys know, I am give me a circle of friends who went to college together, who get back together again, who have past and present secrets, and it all comes crashing down. That is one of my favorite kinds of books that is similar-ish in theory to kind of what I'm writing. Kind of, sort of, not really. Circle of friends, past and present secrets. But I loved everything about this. So we are getting our main character, Alfred Smedel, and it says he's not your average Hitchcock fan. He is the founder, owner, and manager of the Hitchcock Hotel. So he has created this hotel, which is a sprawling Victorian house in the White Mountains dedicated to Hitchcock, who he is obsessed with. So he has invited his friends, former friends that he knew from college to come up and celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the hotel being open. They went to college in this town, this hotel, which has Psycho House-esque vibes to it, is near where they went to college. And he wants to bring everybody back together again. So we know that not everyone is a huge fan of Alfred in the present tense, but we're not quite sure why. And we're also not quite sure why, if they're not friends with him, why they would all agree to come to this reunion weekend. So we get multiple POVs in this. It is not at all confusing. It's not at all character soup. I've talked about that before, how it's one of my biggest fears in writing my own book. She does such a fantastic job of like introducing some characters. Not everybody has the same amount of page time. Like Alfred definitely has the most page time, but she really grounds you in each character. And I think she does a tremendous job with it. And we get to see what their life was like in college, not through distinct past and present timelines, but through the narration of each character. And I loved how it all came together. I really loved this group of friends. They're all sorts of dark and messed up. I really loved the core of this story, and I definitely thought it was going one way. It surprised me in all the best ways, and I just love just deliciously dark characters. And I really also love the format of this book. So again, multiple POVs, but she also has all these interstitials that are thrown in, which you can tell, like I said, she had great fun with it. She did a lot of research on Hitchcock. And these are excerpts from essays. It really kind of sets the tone for certain chapters that we're heading into, certain parts of the book that we're heading into. And it really adds a whole other level of fun, I think, whether it's the insight to Hitchcock, whether it's the appreciation of his movies, things that he was kind of the first to do, the innovation in a lot of his movies. And I thought it really elevated the book in a lot of ways and just added something fun. And not that it's all about me. But did I love that the book starts on October 12th, which is my birthday? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I get super excited. As someone who grew up, and still am, Audrey, and anytime you ever went anywhere and people were getting keychains with their names on it or pencils, those little license plates and stuff, nothing ever had Audrey written on it. So anytime I find anything that's closely associated to me, I do get an extra level of excited. I realize now Audrey's more popular, but rewind a couple decades and remember how hard it was to find anything with your name on it if you didn't have a conventional name. So it's not all about me, but it's all about me. I kid. Anyway. This was a great time. I really, really enjoyed it. It also definitely kind of revamped my interest in Hitchcock. I had started working my way through his films. I'd seen some of them and then kind of went through a little bit of a binge and then slowed down again and then got back on board. And finally, I can't believe I never watched To Catch a Thief. I finally watched that. I think because I had, there's so many times movies reference it, particularly Remington Steele. I almost feel like I had seen it, but that was great fun. And then I watched Rope, which is referenced in here. So I will warn, she does spoil a few Hitchcock movies in here. And Alfred, who is breaking the fourth wall and talking to us, also warns us that some movies are going to be spoiled. But he's kind of what do you expect's going to happen? I don't know if I would say he spoils Rope. He gives you the premise of it. I feel like Psycho has a giveaway to it. There are references to Suspicion, which I didn't know anything about. I feel like there's Rear Window references. Dial M for Murder is definitely in here. So just kind of a heads up. I don't think it will change your appreciation of watching Hitchcock movies. I just wanted to let you know that just in case you're concerned about it at all, but Alfred does give you a heads up on it as well. So anyway, can you tell? I am such a huge fan of this. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. And yeah, give me dark and messed up friend groups all the live long day for sure. Also a fan of dark and messed up married people living in the suburbs. This is The Widow on Dwyer Court by Lisa Kusel, who is a friend of the channel. And this is Lisa's book that came out this year. I absolutely devoured this one as well. You can see some of my tags here. I love a dark and messed up suburbia any day of the week. And this was another one of those books where I like to fancy myself kind of smart and think I know what direction something's going in, and couldn't have been more wrong. Could not have been more wrong about it. So this is 36-year-old stay-at-home soccer mom Kate Burke. She's happily married to Matt, and she is kind of a secret, like writes under a pen name, secret erotica writer, and her and her husband have an open marriage, and the deal is Matt can go on business trips and have one-off affairs, and he has to come home and tell her all about it. And she maybe kind of sort of totally uses that information to write her sexy books. We get to see the scenes where he's like literally lying on the couch recapping his affairs to her, and she's furiously taking notes on it. And I just found it so fascinating. And I feel like one of the things that I really appreciated about this as a writer was the insight to the writer's life and Kate's feelings in her process and how she's working through stuff. Like there were so many moments with Kate while she was writing where I was like, yep, totally get that, totally feel that, totally understand that. So it felt like a very behind the curtain kind of inside baseball of it all, which I loved. And again, kind of like with the Hitchcock book, if you're a fan of his, you'll get the Easter eggs. I feel like if you're a writer, there's kind of like an added level of appreciation to what's going on for Kate. But this is a psychological thriller. So as if it's not enough that her husband's off having affairs that she condones, we also get a new lady in town, and that is Annie Myers. And she comes to kind of upset the apple cart. So her daughter is the same age as Kate and Matt's daughter. They become friends, and things start to just get a little bit tricky. And it's kind of like Kate and Annie become really good friends. I talked about how this reminded me of Jocelyn Jackson's Never Have I Ever. And I love the idea of kind of the stranger who comes to town and kind of flips everything on its head. So we get some secrets, we get some mystery, like I said, domestic, psychological suspense, some steaminess to it. We also get a bit of the book within the book, so we get to see what Kate is writing. And Lisa, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like there needs to be some fan fiction of Kate's books that we can all read, because I want to know how it ends. And also, not that it's all about me, but I wrote Lisa about this and I was like, a character named Audrey? I'm all in. I'm such a brat. But I do want to know how Audrey's story ends. Like, I really legitimately do. So I hope there's some fan fiction coming on that. But this was great fun. So if you like the suburbia, if you like the dark and messed up neighborhood, if you like the secrets and lies, and some real unpredictability to it, because I totally got it wrong, which is the best kind of book. I don't like to be right. I love when I'm wrong. Fantastic, great fun, highly recommend it. And definitely like sit near a fan when you're reading it, because some of those scenes are steamy. The next book I listened to, and this is Death at the Sanatorium by Ragnar Jónasson, and this was read by Sam Wolf. So this was translated from Icelandic. I have talked about Ragnar Jónasson on here before, and this book marks the return of Hulda, who was in the series The Darkness, and you don't have to have read the first 3 books in the series to read this one, but again, kind of like, I feel like I'm on theme here, not even intending to. If you have, there's like a little bit more fun of an Easter egg. If you haven't, totally read it how it is, but then go back and read the Hulda books, because I think they're super fun. So I will list all 3 of the Hulda books down below, but I did talk about this in my preview of this book before it came out. So, all right, this is what it's about. We are in 1983 at a former sanatorium in the north of Iceland. Now it is a hospital ward, and one of the older nurses, is found murdered. So we have Hulda, who is a detective, and her boss are sent to investigate it. There are 5 suspects: the chief physician, 2 junior nurses, a young doctor, and the caretaker, who was arrested following false testimony and subsequently released. And then we have present day, which in the book is 2012. And we have a young police officer who's been studying criminology in the UK, decides to return to Iceland, and he is offered a job with the Reykjavik Police Department. And he has written a thesis about this sanatorium, and he starts to kind of dig into the old case and is trying to meet with everyone who was involved with the case at the time, because there's just a lot still to investigate about the case. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to give anything away. But he is meeting with the people we are meeting in the past tense during the original investigation. He is meeting with them in the present to try and piece together what actually happened. Because as you can probably guess, this sanatorium has a long, dark, messed up history. And there's a lot of questions about what happened in 1983 that are raising questions now. I very much enjoyed this. I haven't read a Ragnar Jónasson book, I want to say in at least a year. And there was such a comfort sort of being back in this world. I really enjoy his writing. It's like, again, short, direct, well done. It is very dark. I think I kind of forgot how dark some of it could be, although there were things that I remember from the other series that I know are really dark. But he did something in this book that I didn't expect and was totally blown away by, versus like a different book where I thought something dark and messed up was going to happen and it didn't. It's so funny. And I don't know, maybe just it's all kind of like jumbled in my brain with like, how much more dark and messed up could it be? Or other times, like, you're not even thinking something bad is going to happen. So I really enjoyed it. And I loved the parallel lines. I liked seeing people in the past and the present. Would anyone be surprised to know there's this fantastic Murder, She Wrote episode where there is a mystery in the past, which is based on an actual movie, like footage from that movie is taken out and used in present day Murder, She Wrote. And she is trying to solve the case, and all of the original actors that were in the film are in the episode of Murder, She Wrote playing themselves, like, as characters. If anybody knows, thank you very much. I know sometimes my world is small when it comes to JB, 40-year anniversary. There we go. But anyway, I very much enjoyed seeing the investigation in the dual timeline, seeing how things were revealed. Can't trust anybody. Everybody's got their own motivations. And he's just a really fantastic writer, and I need to get back into his books. He's got a mix of standalones and series. I think you could really start anywhere. You could certainly start with this one, but highly recommend it. Really well narrated. And yeah, I'm just a fan of his. And I kind of feel like any time of year is great for any book. I am not a specifically seasonal reader, but if you're looking for something Arctic and maybe want to get something ready for the winter months, his books are all ice cold Reykjavik, fantastic, and really, really good. And they might kind of, lean into the darkness a bit. So, favorite place to be, right? Another book that is every shade of dark. This is So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. There goes all the paperwork. This was also gifted to me from Berkeley. I was so intrigued by this. So this is a vampire story that's right on the front cover. That's not any kind of a giveaway. I read We Love the Nightlife by Rachel Koller Croft, I don't know, last month or like 6 weeks ago, whatever it is. You guys saw it in one of my recent wrap-ups that I did. And I was kind of on the vibe of two best friends who kind of become vampires. And that's what this book is about. And I was all in for it. I read Cackle by Rachel Harrison a couple years ago and I really enjoyed it. And I know, so this is horror, not thriller. I know she can lean pretty dark and bloody. And I'm not always mentally prepared for it, but I braved my way through it. I'll talk about what was a little bit disturbing without spoiling in a minute. But this is about Sloane and her best friend Naomi. So Sloane is dreading her birthday. She doesn't really mind getting older, but she's feeling very indifferent about her life. Her husband surprises her with a weekend getaway with her best friend Naomi. Naomi is and has been dating a dude in a band for a really long time. She is their PR person. She travels around with them. So Sloane and Naomi don't see each other very much anymore. They were best friends growing up, super tight. And this is kind of a great time for them to get away and have a girls' weekend. And they do, and they kind of, like they meet some people and agree to go hang out at a house party. They're looking for something fun to do and kind of maybe accidentally wind up getting turned into vampires. So it wasn't really part of their plan. And it's not that this is a comedy, but you're kind of like, oh, whoops, make good choices, right? Make good choices. And we kind of get to see what happens afterwards. So what I will say, as a back in the day Buffy fan, I am not put off by the vampire life. You guys know I loved We Love the Nightlife. This is definitely, and We Love the Nightlife was bloody. This is definitely bloodier. I don't have a good tolerance for body horror. There's definitely some passages in this that I kind of like had to do a one eye open because it's a little bit more graphic than I particularly enjoy. But what I will say, as I skimmed over those couple of paragraphs, which at one point felt like in every chapter, it's just vampires gotta eat. I really enjoyed the core storyline about the friendship between Sloane and Naomi. And I think the weaving of the evolution of their friendship from teenagers to today, they're in their early 30s, the toxicity that can bleed in, the envy that can bleed in, the complications of female friendships, the like recognizing things that are wrong in each other's lives, when to push, when to pull back, when to, you know, kind of like lean into how you're feeling, the dynamic of just like how they are with each other and the depths of their friendship. I really loved the storyline of their friendship. I liked what was going on around it, but that's the core of the story. And that's what I was so drawn to. And I feel like similarly in Cackle, I was so drawn to the main character in that and her story. And there was so much other stuff going, not like so much in a bad way, but like other plot going on around it. But I really loved that core story. And I think that's what Rachel Harrison does such a fantastic job about. Like not only a page-turning, gripping horror, but also she creates such fleshed out, relatable characters, in my opinion. And that's what I'm so drawn to. So I do really enjoy her writing. There's some really great lines in this. I definitely had a cringe a couple times and I was like, oh geez. So wasn't necessarily like, there was a point where I was like, I don't think I can read this before bed. Like I might need to switch gears a little bit. I'm a little bit of a baby when it comes to stuff like that. And you know, that's just me. And you know how some people are like, they can't deal with like the dog dying in the book. I'm not really good with the bunnies that don't make it out. So harm is done to bunnies in this book, which I don't love. But other than that, I really enjoyed the story. I would recommend it. I really would recommend it. Super different from We Love Nightlife, but core female friendship, well written, super creepy, perfect for this time of year. Recommend. The next book, we are back to a series. This is Predator by Patricia Cornwel. This is book number 14 in the series, and this is the first book that is a new to me read in the series. So I have reread up to book 13, and now I am here into the new books. We are getting multiple cases, multiple investigations. How does it all tie together? Does it tie together? We are back with a lot of our favorite characters. I feel like these books are so hard to talk about. Let me know. Like, I'm worried that if I mention characters or don't mention characters or like say too much about the personal side of the plot, that it's going to ruin stuff for people. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Let me know. Let me know. I will say the case in this one is very dark. It's super violent. Her books, she does not shy away from the dark and messed up. From book number 1, she does not shy away from it, Patricia Cornwel. I really was like, whoa. And maybe because I had a month of Butcher and The Ren, I don't know why I was in such a dark place. I was just gravitating towards really dark stuff. I'm never quite sure how dark she's gonna go. She was dark, she stayed there, and there was some, I would qualify it as disturbing elements of the crime scenes that we just kept coming back to. I'm not even going to talk about what they are because it's just, you know, if you don't want to know, you don't want to know. We just kept coming back to it over and over and over again to the point that like I kept telling Sarah from Sarah's Nightshade, I was like, this is what we're talking about. We just kept coming back to it. So she really drove some of the points home. But we get kind of a mix of being up in Boston adjacent, Belmont, McLean Hospital, which is where Susanna Kaysen from Girl Interrupted was. There's a long history of that hospital. I feel like I talked about this. Why am I having a case of deja vu? Have I already done this? The dark and messed upness of this book was on point. And we are up there, we are in Florida, and there's all sorts of real depravity going on, unfortunately, for everybody. And I was all hooked into it. So I actually wound up doing most of this on audiobook. January Lavoie read this, and what's interesting to me, I feel like it's a re-record because when I finished book 13, I was going to dive right into this one, and I couldn't get the audiobook anywhere. And then for some reason, I double checked, I don't know, whatever it was, like 2 weeks ago when I was like in the mood to read it. And all of a sudden it showed up at my library, and it's a different, January Lavoie hasn't narrated the previous books. And then the next book in the series is narrated by Kate Redding, who narrated the previous ones. So I must feel like this was a do-over for some reason, but anyway, not mad about it. But side fun fact included in inside my book is my ticket to New York Times Arts and Leisure Weekend. This is from January 8th, 2006. And I saw Patricia Cornwel and Scott Turow. And I very much remember doing it. I think this was my first Arts and Leisure Weekend that I went to, but it's my ticket stub from that. I was in row B, because of course I was in the second row because I'm such a nerd. And I just had the best time. Like I love finding like little treasures inside the book. But I remember seeing the two of them. I met her afterwards. She signed my book, which I was super excited about, of course. And it just was like a fun memory to see that and remember it. And then, unrelated to all of this, but if you guys have been here for a very long time, I finally started to watch Presumed Innocent, which is based on the Scott Turow book. And I am now caught between wanting to stop the series and read the book, or do I just finish the series and then read the book? I've read the book twice, but like that's happening. Scott Turow, the ticket with Scott Turow and Patricia Cornwel was in here. I definitely believe in the signs. I definitely believe in the signs, and there were some. So I'm going to continue with Patricia Cornwel. If you guys watched my October new releases video, you would have heard me go on ad nauseum about how they're finally doing the series on Amazon with Nicole Kidman and Jamie Lynn Curtis. Apparently Nicole Kidman is playing Kay. Unclear, but we'll see. And then I learned from all of you guys that Bobby Cannavale and his son are both in it, and I think it's going to be great fun. So I'm excited for that. I don't know that I'm actually, well, we'll see. I was going to say, I don't know that I'll finish the series by the time the TV series comes out, but I'm not sure when the TV series is going to come out, so who knows? Can I read 10 plus more books? We'll find out. Okay, the next book I have, where did I put it, is The Night Guest. So I also did the audiobook of this. This was by Hulda Knutsdotter, and this was translated by and read by Mary Robinette Kowal. This was all kinds of creepy. Let me get the proper description of this. This is a novella, so there's not too much I want to say about this book. This is about a woman who can't sleep and what starts to happen. Did I say it was called The Night Guest? It was sufficiently creepy. I was sufficiently creeped out by this. I listened to this in one stint. It's like a 2.5 hour audiobook, I want to say. It is set in Reykjavik also. So I was kind of in my Icelandic kick this month, and our main character, Evam, is in another doctor's office. She's constantly fatigued. She knows something's not right. So there's kind of like this overlying theme about, I feel like, women coming in with medical issues and not being believed or being told kind of like to grin and bear it. Has anyone had a doctor say that to them lately? To just sort of dismiss the symptoms that she's coming in with and the problems that she's facing, and that's not fun. So she's trying to like tell her friends and family, and everybody's like, try eating better, you know, try getting some exercise, maybe take some sleeping pills. Until one night, Evam falls asleep with her watch on. I talked about this in I'm like showing you my Fitbit even though you can't see it, and it's like, this thing's gonna terrify me for life now. So she wakes up one morning and finds out, because everybody's watch resets itself at midnight, that she walked 40,000 steps overnight. What? So she needs to figure out what is happening when she's asleep, what is going on, and now she's waking up with some disturbing injuries, which, like, what? This is a quick, dark, disturbing read, and I very much enjoyed it. It's of the dark and messed up. It's sufficiently creepy. Can I say anything else about it? Not too much, but there's a great quote in this, and it says, "In the sky above us, the stars twinkle. Between them is the dark." I loved that. I'm on such a quote kick again, but fantastic. If you need a good, quick, spooky time read, give The Night Guest a go. I don't think you will be disappointed. And that is going to do it for things that I have read lately. Thank you again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget, you guys, you can get your first book for $5 using the code PUMPKIN. So all of that information, the link is going to be down below. Let me know, what have you guys read lately? What is like burning up your list? Have you read Intermezzo yet? I refuse to look at the reviews, but I'm very curious if anybody's read it yet. I definitely feel like it's a hyped book that's going on these days, or like that's out and about these days. So let me know if you've read that, what you've been reading, what's been going on. Happy fall, everybody. I am forcing it to come. Like, if I wear the sweater, it will come. That is my theory. And I will be back with a Q3 video talking about what actually happened-ish It's been a ride, you guys. But until then, take care, everybody. Thank you again, Book of the Month, and I will see all of you guys in the next video. Bye, everybody.